What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Set Bet Spike right here on FTN Network, Game Plus Network, powered by FTN Bets. Chris Meaney and Eric Young here with you for the next little bit. We are breaking down one of the best divisions in the NFL and maybe in sports in general. This is a loaded AFC West EY. It was pretty good and competitive last year, and now it's much improved. And the reigning division champs, Kansas City Chiefs, who have been to a couple Super Bowls over the last couple of seasons, actually may be the only team inside this division which took a step back. The Broncos are much improved. The Chargers are improved, especially on the defensive side of things. And the Las Vegas Raiders are improved on both sides of the football as well. And of course, you can never count out Patrick Mahomes. But first of all, welcome in, everybody hanging out. A friendly reminder, this show is also available on iTunes and Spotify. Should be popping up this weekend for you if you just rather listen to podcasts instead of watching us here on our YouTube page or on Game Plus Network. We have a couple more divisions to wrap up inside the AFC. Maybe we'll have a draft episode before the NFL season gets underway where EY and I can take part in a live draft to give you a little bit of a feel. And then it's football time, baby. Week 2 of the preseason happening this weekend, EY.
Yeah, it always comes so fast, right? The Stanley Cup gets done. You're like, I can take a couple breaths. I know you do baseball and golf and you're an absolute freak, but I only have bandwidth for hockey and football. I couldn't name probably 10 other professional players in any sport except for 1993 Blue Jays. So I'm out, but it seems like it's so far away. And then the next thing you know, you're like 3 weeks out from actual games that mean something. I'm not saying that the preseason doesn't mean anything, coming from a person that will probably watch every single snap of every single game because I am a lunatic. There is advantages to game there. I don't care what anybody says. You may not learn a lot about starters, but for a guy that has a couple dynasty leagues, guys that is in a 16-team, 2-quarterback league, like you got players on your bench that may not play a single snap, and you have to know every player. And I do. So we're off and running. Set Bet Spike. Land of the Psychos. Daily Handle's in the house. Let's do it, boys.
Daily Handle's also always in the house. We really do appreciate your support, dude, for this show and Dangle Betselli and Mean Streets. And I know you were on the MLB show yesterday. And I was actually thinking about you last night because you asked about the Brewers as a potential dog, and we didn't get around to it. My apologies. I think we may have saved you some cash, though, because I do believe the Brewers lost that game last night to the Dodgers. But we do appreciate your support and actually agree with what he's coming in here, too. I am not sold, on who I am going to pick to win this division. I'm in some pools where you got to pick. You got to pick every division winner. You pick playoff teams. I'm kind of right there with Daily Handle on the Broncos. We won't lead with them, but I think that's a pretty good bet, Daily Handle. I really like this Broncos squad. I think they're pretty sound on both sides of the football. But here we go. AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs are plus 175. The Chargers are plus 220. The Broncos are plus 260. And the Las Vegas Raiders are plus 650 over at DraftKings. And if you just go up and down most, divisions, I mean, the Bills are minus 230 favorites. The Colts are minus 130 favorites. The Bucks are minus 250 favorites. The Packers are minus 190 favorites. Then you got the Rams that are plus 125 and the Ravens plus 150 and the Cowboys are plus 140. But this is the one division in the NFL with the longest odds as the favorite. So it just goes to show how competitive this will be. And Vegas is saying it's kind of a toss-up between the three teams, and they're not really giving Las Vegas too much credit. But at the same time, in all of the divisions, the team that has the longest odds, they're super long, like Bears 14-1, Falcons 35-1, Texans 30-1. So the Raiders at plus 650 as the fourth team. Again, this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Let's start with those Chiefs. Let's start with Kansas City. You see the win total at 10.5, 6-1 to win the conference, as I mentioned, plus 175 to win the division. Wild card at plus 220. Putting wild card in here for a lot of the teams inside this division because we could see as many as 3 from this division make the playoffs. Super Bowl at 10-1. Last year's record at 12-5. Last year, EY, they went through something, Kansas City, for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, right? He came into his second season was really his rookie season. His rookie season, I think he played one game at the end of the year, and they were already locked into a playoff spot. And I believe Alex Smith was the starting quarterback at that time. And then Mahomes' first full season in the NFL, fantastic. It's been nothing but fantastic for him. On average, he's going as a third quarterback off the board. Clyde Edwards-Helaire as RB26. Ronald Jones, Isaiah Pacheco is in the news lately as an impressive running back in Kansas City's camp, and he's jumped up draft boards much higher than ADP 214 over the last month in NFFC leagues. Over the last 2 weeks, our very own Vlad Sedler said he has gone as high as pick 108. Wow. Juju Smith-Schuster's on that list. I think Mecole Hardman got carted off yesterday. I don't know too much about everything that's happening there, but it does not look good. Sky Moore is a rookie that they drafted. They also have MVS, who they picked up, and of course Juju Smith-Schuster, along with Travis Kelce as the first tight end off the board on average. But let's just talk about this team overall. Losing Tyreek Hill, it's significant. Like, he's 100%. Been one of the best players in the game. He's a game changer. The connection between him and Patrick Mahomes is one of the best in the league. He's inside the top 10 in terms of targets. It's a lot of targets gone away from this squad. Do you have any concerns about this offense and how it's going to roll? Or is this going to be like, next man up for Patty Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. It is a great quarterback. There's no doubt, a great player. He can run. He can make every throw. He's Aaron Rodgers, but maybe at his peak better than Aaron Rodgers ever was, which is scary to say. I think Aaron Rodgers is technically the best quarterback in the league, technical wise, with all the skills and the touch on the ball, able to throw a deep ball, able to run, able to slide out of the pocket, able to read defenses. Like, I still think Aaron Rodgers is one of, if not the best. Patrick Mahomes is right there and possibly even better at a very young age. I mean, he's being paid accordingly. He's making a few bucks, but I mean, man, who's going to catch the ball? I mean, we don't know. MVS is unproven. They lose Pringle, like they just lost Hardman now. I mean, we don't know how long, but like, I get Kelce is going to be the guy. That's his blankie. That's his check down guy. Also, with him running up the seam, good with long balls, good after the catch. And that's something with Tyreek. Like, there's really no one like him in the league, a guy that can rip the top off a defense with his crazy speed. He can also catch a screen and take it for 80 yards because he's so fast and so elusive and so good with the ball in his hand. He's a one of one. There isn't another player like him. And I think if you're going to compare Tyreek Hill to anybody in the league, it's Jalen Waddle. And now they're playing opposite each other, and that's going to be a nightmare for fantasy people. I don't care what anybody says. They're both being drafted too high. They're going to vulture. They're great for real football, and I think Miami will be much improved because of having both of those guys on the field at the same time. But good luck guessing who's going to be the guy that week. Good luck with that. I'm avoiding it if I can. And I mean, the truth is I'm avoiding most of these Kansas City receivers because it's just the deep, dark unknown of I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty here with some of these guys. I mean, Juju is the one who's getting drafted early
at every position, right?
Yeah, there really is, because
every guy in between Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce at the bottom of the list. Who knows? Every single one of those guys. Who knows? Ronald Jones might not be on the team. Juju Smith-Schuster, he might be who he's been for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Done. Sky Moore might be a superstar. Or he's also a rookie and he catches 25 passes for 60 yards in a season. I mean, who knows?
Oh, man, I hope he catches more than that. I got some Sky Moore shares. Out of all the names on that list, I think he may be my favorite Kansas City wide receiver to draft. I think Juju has the highest ceiling, but, Juju has had some issues over the past couple of years. With Jake Seeley, we mentioned him, I think, in the last episode. We've all worked together at The Athletic, and Jake has a show on our network and Game Plus network, All in Football, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You can catch live at 11 Eastern or on Game Plus at 8 Eastern. But, Juju, his second year when he popped onto the scene with Antonio Brown, and then Antonio Brown left and everybody just thought Juju would be an automatic top 5 wide receiver. It's kind of like what's happening with CeeDee Lamb. Is Amari Cooper leaves and everybody just assumes CeeDee Lamb is going to be, a top 6, top 7 wide receiver. He's going to get a boatload of targets and he's just going to be fantastic. But what we saw from Juju that season without Antonio Brown is they moved him on the outside and he just really couldn't handle top coverage. It was new to him. Like, all the attention went to Antonio Brown and Juju was just okay. Like, he wasn't as great as what everybody thought.
He's single covered on every play. Of course he's good.
Exactly. And all the attention went to AB. Now, I expect a lot of attention to go to Kelsey. Probably be a lot of doubles. Juju back into the slot, linked to Patrick Mahomes. He's a couple years removed from 90 grabs. I see the ceiling. I see the upside with Juju Smith-Schuster. There's also been a lot of injuries over the past couple seasons. I think he's dealing with one currently right now. He hasn't been in practice all week. I don't think it's significant, but it is something. He's not on the field in practice, catching passes from Patrick Mahomes, and then Mecole Hardman is off the sideline. So now there's an opportunity here for MVS and Sky Moore. I don't mind taking that price on Juju at wide receiver 29. I'll have some shares. And at what Lee is bringing in here too, I think you have to make the decision between Sky and MVS. Can we bring that board back up, George, with just where these two guys are going here? Pretty side by side, right? MVS, I've seen go ahead of Sky Moore, and Sky Moore has really jumped up considerably. Lee, I don't mind taking shots on both of these guys. At this price point, wide receiver 49, in the 50s, outside the top 100 picks for wide receiver linked to Patrick Mahomes is still going to be a really good offense. The games inside this division, 6 of them, we're going to have shootouts. You're going to be like 50-point totals, 60-point totals. It's just what's going to happen inside this division. I think maybe the Broncos can slow teams down a little bit, but there is some upside to be had. But the one thing with MVS, if you've been following his career, he's been a deep threat guy. There's been a lot of boom and bust. And if you're playing DFS, it's a guy that you want to have in some of your lineups and tournaments, because if he's getting 3 or 4 shots deep down the field and Patrick Mahomes is going to give it to him, Rodgers gave it to him at times last season, that ceiling is hit. I still think there'll be some inconsistencies in the game of his. But yeah, at that price, at that point, I certainly am willing to take some shots. You're playing best ball. It's a stack you can do. Sure. But I really like Sky. I agree with Daily Handle here. Sky's the limit. I'm excited about this guy out of Western Michigan, right? He can do a bunch of things. He could blow the top off the defense, some end arounds, some bubble screens. They're using him kind of in all situations so far in camp. Now Hardman is gone. I think Harden being gone probably solidifies MVS. I think if they roll some 2 wide receiver sets, it's Juju and MVS with Kelsey, and then Sky's kind of sprinkled in here and there. But he is really jumping up draft board, ZY, to the point where, holy crap, get your guy if you want him.
Rich for my blood.
It's getting pricey.
Get too rich for my blood. I mean, did he do those things, and is he capable of those things? I think probably, but he hasn't played a snap in the NFL. I mean, that's terrifying. MVS could turn into this person that a lot of people in the industry have wanted him to be for the last 3 or 4 years. This big-bodied, blazing guy running down the sideline, catching bombs from Patrick Mahomes, and could be the number 1 target other than Kelsey. I mean, we know that he's going to catch the most. There's just no doubt about it. He's going to be the reception king even now more since Tyreek Hill is gone. But I mean, any 3 of these guys, it could be any one of the 3. And for me to bet on at that ADP, to bet on a rookie who hasn't played it down, I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying it's not as likely as everyone wants to think. I mean, wide receiver, it's not as hard as tight end to learn, but it's massive transition from the college ranks to the NFL. The game speed is faster. The catch window is tiny. You're being asked to do things that you maybe weren't asked to do because you're not 4 wide receivers every single down. It's a completely different game, and we're going to find out. And I think Sky Moore, where he's going at this point, I mean, 3 weeks ago, he was a steal, I think. Now
he was
because of the drumbeat and every analyst, us included, talking about him. I feel like it's just that's too much of a risk in the middle rounds there for me.
These are just the wide receivers that are going around him over the past couple of weeks. Tyler Lockett, Treylon Burks, Robert Woods, Russell Gage, Chris Olave, Sky Moore, Chase Claypool, Rondell Moore, Tyler Boyd, Garrett Wilson, and MVS, followed by Kenny Golladay, Jarvis Landry. I still think I'm fine with Sky Moore in that range. I do want one of those Titans wide receivers. We haven't previewed that division yet, but I think I'm in on Woods more than Burks. But, Burks, I do like his future. Then it's just crowded with Gage and then Olave. Like, there was a gap. You're right. A month ago, 6 weeks ago, there was a pretty decent gap between Olave and Sky Moore as both rookies. And now Sky Moore has kind of caught up to him. But I am going to just certainly have some shares of Sky Moore. Let's talk about this backfield quickly, though, before we move on from them and get up into the Chargers. So you mentioned Jones could be done. I agree with you. CEH.
He could also be the starting running back.
I don't believe it. He could be, but I don't believe it. I know what you're saying, though. It's crowded, and I get it. Jones, I'm just not a believer in Jones. He can't catch the rock. even when he was in Tampa, he was losing some goal line touches to Peyton Barber. I know they probably brought him in as like a quote unquote veteran back here who could maybe be a goal line back for them. They still have Jerick McKinnon on the squad. They still have Derek Gore on the squad. CEH started the first preseason game, and you can only take preseason with a grain of salt, but sometimes it's very telling what coaching staffs are going to do, and they're giving opportunities to certain guys. CEH started the game with the first team offense. I think he had 7 or 8 plays. And then they had Isaiah Pacheco come in to play with Patrick Mahomes. He received a red zone target inside the 10. I think that was very telling as well. He is definitely jumping up draft boards. I don't believe he's a back that will carry the rock between the tackles like 10 to 12 times a game, but to have a third down role inside this offense is very, very valuable. Jerick McKinnon led everybody, all backs in the playoffs in rushing yards, receiving yards, and receptions. I know he's still in the squad, but man, Pacheco is stepping up. I guess I'll just ask you, CEH, like Jones is a fade. He's actually going much later than that board just showed. He's really dropping off to the point where maybe you can just take him in the last round as like depth on your squad. Pacheco, I actually don't mind. I won't take him as pick 100 or 130. He's going to have to fall outside the top 140, 150 for me to be interested. But CEH, as we get out of here, CEH, are you willing to take a shot on him? Because the upside is there. The ceiling is there. When he was drafted originally, everybody said 101 in dynasty leagues, and he was drafted inside the top 10, and he turned out to be a bust. Like, he had a good couple games, but he couldn't get in the red zone. He seems like he's lost the third down role. He's had issues staying healthy. So how many shares will you have of CEH? Is he at all on your radar?
I think I'll have some. I mean, drafts that has passed me by. I don't have him at all on any of the teams that I've drafted, other than maybe some best ball leagues. But I'll say this: I feel like we haven't seen the real him yet because of injuries. He had some weird sickness and lost 25 pounds. If you would ask me yesterday, I would have been able to tell you what it is, but I can't think of it right now. But he had some weird thing where he was sick and lost a bunch of weight, couldn't work out like he wanted to, couldn't put the weight back on. So he was playing at a much lighter weight. And I mean, the reality is he's not a big guy to begin with. And then being 20 to 25 pounds lighter, it's hard to take that beating. Your energy levels are just lower because your body stores, your energy stores in your body are depleted. So I think we're going to find out this season who he is. And I think because of the Pacheco buzz, because of the Sky Moore buzz, because of the talk of all of that, his ADP is going down. And at where he's at now, he could be a massive value. And I'll say this. I mean, if you're drafting teams, you don't win fantasy leagues by being safe. You mean like one person is going to win, and other than if you're in a league where you have to get a tattoo or a bowl of rocks or something, like other than that, being last, there is no penalty for it. If you're in a league where last place is a penalty, then okay, maybe have a couple good players. But if you know what you're doing, it's very unlikely in any league that you're in, you're going to finish in last place. I can say, as a person that's playing fantasy football for well over 15 years, I've never finished in last place ever in any league I've ever been in, because I care too much and I'm a lunatic. And if you're watching the show, you care too much and you're a lunatic as well. So for me, where CH is going right now, and I think as the preseason goes, as long as he doesn't flash at some point or have some big catch for a huge run or something, I think he could be a massive steal. I think he could be. But where he's going, around where he's going, all those guys are a risk.
Yeah.
So
there's some penalties
on a guy that everybody thought was going to be, because we haven't seen him at full health. We haven't seen it yet in the NFL. There is good value here at RB26, 80 picks outside the top 80, especially, how you construct your roster. I wouldn't want to leave the draft as him as your RB2, but if you can get him as your RB3 or RB4, I think for sure.
I think it's perfect. There's still a ceiling there. I do believe he's going to be the lead. I agree. I think you said it perfectly. I think there's certainly some value there. And in some of my leagues, I got some penalties, so I don't I won't share what some of the penalties are, but we have weekly penalties as well. If you finish last for the week, look out. Awesome. You're doing shots on videos or something, eating a bowl of rocks. I might have to put that into the pool.
That's a new one.
That's a new one. I'm not interested. Okay, let's move on from KC. What I will say about Kelsey, I think he's fine, but keep in mind Andrews finished as tight end 1 last year, and there's nothing going on in Baltimore. The gap between Kelsey and everybody else is not as significant in years past. Like, I think he's still fine if you want to take him early second, but there was something to be said about taking him in the first round in years past because of that gap. You really had an advantage on everybody else, but I think that Andrews and Pitts are right there with Kelsey. So the Chargers. This is a team that is one of the best in the NFL on paper, and they have been for a couple of years. It's just things have gotten in the way, whether it's kickers missing kicks at key times, injuries, losing overtime games down the stretch. They have a win total of 10.5 as well. AFC, they're plus 850 to win the division. They're plus 250. Wild card in here at plus 195. They're 16-1 to win the bowl, and they're 9-8. They had that game against the Raiders at the end of the season. If they both tied, they were both going to get in. And the Raiders had a game-winning field goal in overtime, which punched their ticket into the playoffs. But much improved, especially on the defensive side of things. J.C. Jackson, cornerback out of New England that they signed. Khalil Mack, former Raider, a member of the Chicago Bears last year, now a member of the Los Angeles Chargers, a pass rush that is, pretty vicious when you include Joey Bosa in there. Derwin James is one of the better, in my opinion, safeties in the league, and he just got locked up like he is one of the better safeties in the league. Some will say he's overrated. He's had some issues staying healthy, but when he's on the field, he is one of the best. They've done a great job of just bolstering the offensive line over the past couple of years through free agency, through the draft. I think Rashawn Slater in the first round 2 years ago, Zion Johnson here, right guard. So they got some pieces. This team is set up to have a lot of success. Brendan Staley is now in year 2 of being a head coach. He did he was pretty aggressive and very entertaining last year. Team that was up 7, up 9 halfway through the second quarter, 4th and 9 on their own 22. They're going for it. They were really, really aggressive. At times it paid off. At times it did not pay off. But as we transition over some of their weapons, EY, there's a lot to like here. Justin Herbert going ahead of Patrick Mahomes. I've seen both. Mahomes 2, Herbert 2. Herbert is my second quarterback. I agree with this ranking over at NFFC, the ADP over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Austin Eckler is kind of dropped down a little bit, but, at times RB3, top 5 pick. Isaiah Spiller is a running back that they drafted. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer. It was actually the first wide receiver that they drafted for Justin Herbert. Canadian boy is yet to really make his mark in the NFL. And then Gerald Everett, they replace Jared Cook with. Who's your favorite target? Should we go Keenan Allen, Mike Williams? Who do you pick between those two guys? Who do you want?
I think now it's probably Williams. He started the year unreal, was one of the top receivers in the league. Then he got hurt. Then he kind of had this kind of dead time in the middle of the season and then really came on near the end. It's hard to believe, 2 years ago, Tyrod Taylor is the starter of this team. Justin Herbert is drafted. He's a project. Who knows if he's ever going to play? Maybe he'll never be good enough to play. They stabbed Tyrod Taylor's lung with a syringe, which is insane. He can't play. Justin Herbert is thrust into the starting role. Chargers fans lose their mind. The season's over, and boom, he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, and he's unbelievable, an unbelievable player. Doesn't get rattled. He looks like he's 12, and he's out there just whipping it all over the place. I love this team. I think I will definitely put a future bet on them to win the championship. And I think their defense is going to be massively improved. They were so hurt. There were so many injuries on the defensive side of the Chargers. So I just think they're just going to be massively improved. They proved last year. I love this coach. I love the quarterback. Austin Eckler is always awesome. A massive volume guy. He catches the ball, he runs the ball. Last year, tons of goal line work. But that's why I've really got my eyes on Isaiah Spiller, because I'm a lunatic. I watch this channel on YouTube about rookies, and they're talking about defensive linemen who I can't draft because I don't I'm a lunatic. But I watched this special on Isaiah Spiller yesterday, and I'm all in, man. Other than top end speed, this guy can literally do everything. And Eckler has got a reputation for getting banged up and missing games. Isaiah Spiller is going to be the number 2. He's going to play regardless. And if Eckler goes down, he could be a number, a top 10 back in the league. Because of the team.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the team is aggressive. They're going to score a lot of points. The offensive line is really good. I do agree with a lot of those points. And I wouldn't take too much into the preseason. And they've been riding Joshua Kelly, and you look at depth charts and Spiller's behind him. But I think they may be just showcasing Joshua Kelly. We've already seen Joshua Kelly when Eckler was
Joshua
hurt.
Kelly's had his opportunity already.
Exactly. And he didn't do anything. He was a guy that I think for a couple games they gave like 20 touches to, and he wasn't all that efficient between the tackles. So I do believe Isaiah Spiller is the back to own after Eckler inside this offense. Eckler's been on record. He's done some podcasts. Shout out to Liz Loza, who's fantastic. Congrats to her. She just got a job over at ESPN doing some fantasy and some betting and things like that. I've had her on a couple shows in the past at Anthem Sports and Entertainment. She's fantastic. She did a podcast for a couple years with Austin Eckler. I would assume they're not continuing that, but Eckler's been on record to say that he has kind of told the organization, get another running back, kind of scale me back a little bit, keep me fresh. You mentioned he's a guy that can run between the tackles and receive out of the backfield. He is really, really explosive, but I think they want to, scale back a little bit. I don't know if they want to have him as a guy that's like 250 carries in a season. And they've tried this over the past couple of years, whether it's Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson, who else did they draft? Larry Roundtree. Like, they've drafted running backs to try to find that guy who could be a change of pace or kind of lighten the load. And I think they do have it here with Isaiah Spiller. His price is pretty expensive. Out of the rookie running backs that are going between RB 37 and RB 45, 47, you got Isaiah Spiller, James Cook of Buffalo. You got Dameon Pierce of the Texans, Tyler Algier in there as well. I think I'd rather have Algier or Pierce. Pierce probably the one the most for me as a guy who could really take over this backfield. There's no competition, but we could see some goal line touches from Spiller. Saw a nice grab out of him in the camp, but I'm more interested in these wide receivers and these weapons. George brought it up for a second. This is from Mean Streets. We're cross promoting here a little bit. The two wide receivers, the two alphas, Keenan Allen, you see the numbers on the left, more targets, more grabs, fewer yards, similar air yard percentage. Target share is going to go to Keenan Allen because you see the targets on the left, but with Mike Williams, you're going to get more yards, higher ADOT, very healthy ADOT there, 11.6. He's the deep threat guy inside this offense. He was inside the top 5 in end zone targets overall in the NFL, 4th among wide receivers. So he's getting more end zone looks. He's getting more red zone looks. So fewer targets, fewer catches, but more yards and more touchdowns. And as you see, one finishes wide receiver 11 and one finishes wide receiver 12. They were neck and neck, but they're not getting drafted that way. One guy is getting drafted as a wide receiver 10, end of the first, early mid second. Mike Williams, I've seen fall. I took him in the FTN mock draft, I think in the 4th round. I have them kind of ranked closely, 11 and 16. But I'm seeing Williams fall outside, man, like the top 20. I don't know what the deal is. I know he was used differently down the stretch. He had an injury, but this guy's a stud. He's awesome. He's linked to Herbert. Clearly a connection there. As I mentioned, the red zone stuff. I think it's all about how you want to build your own team. If you start with a running back, Keenan Allen's available to you as like your wide receiver 1 at the end of the second round. If you want to start bell cow back, maybe attack the running back position, 2 of your first 3 picks, you can get Mike Williams as your number 2 wide receiver. I think I would rather have Mike Williams as my number 2 wide receiver than Keenan Allen as my number 1 wide receiver. But I think both guys are fine. They're both studs. I think we can move on from this team. I think Everett is an upgrade over Cook if you're in 2 tight end leagues. You could, I think he's sneaky. I think, he's going to have some decent games in there. And then Herbert's fine. Herbert's obviously a stud, right? I agree. I think the Chargers are worth a sprinkle at 16-1 to win the bowl. But again, it's not an easy path, that's for sure. Meaney in the house, tune in a little bit late, but any interest in the over 675 on Sky, more yards? I think, I have a hard time, doing these futures, Meaney, of, especially overs. You put your money away for 4 months and a lot can happen in the NFL. I kind of attack unders. I feel like I learned the hard way last year with a couple players. Corey Davis is well on his way. But, Devontae Smith was kind of around that number last year and he surpassed it. I would say yes. I would lean yes to that over 675. I think he's a gadget guy and he can do a lot of things. I think he's going to have some, EY said there could be some games where he, 2 for 22 or things like that. But I think there could be, 3 or 4 games where he tops 100 yards. And if he does something like that, you're well on your way. I would take a shot on that. Okay, next team, Broncos. We're making good time here. 30-minute mark. Denver
Killing it, man.
Broncos.
Look at us.
Win total, another team, double-digit wins. Like, it's just like absolute bloodbath. Plus 850 to win the conference, plus 270 to win the division, plus 195 for a wild card berth, 18 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. I got in a few minutes after they acquired Russell Wilson. I have it in the bet tracker at 24 to 1. I think 18 to 1 is decent value still as well. You see the record last year, 7 to 10, which is not bad considering the piss poor play at the quarterback position last year. So they bring in Russell Wilson, a big move, right, to acquire him, a bunch of picks. I think Noah Fant, Drew Lock, I believe Shelby Harris is involved in the deal as well. Russell Wilson going as quarterback 10, ADP 81. Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick was one of my favorite wide receiver sleepers. I got a ton of shares of him already. Unfortunately, his season is already over due to an ACL injury. KJ Hamler pops up on the board now as a late round pick potentially. And then Albert, don't ask me to pronounce Big O, tight end 15. An opportunity to break out with Noah Fant on the squad. Who excites you? Who doesn't? Who do you like? Who do you not?
I'm all in on Cortland Sutton. I think
baby,
this guy flashed like a superstar wide receiver with brutal quarterback play. I mean, right? People have been talking about him being a legit number one for 3 or 4 years now, and he hasn't played with a quarterback that could get him the ball. Russell Wilson is by far the best quarterback he's ever played with. We know Russell Wilson. I mean, the moon ball is definitely part of his repertoire. Sutton is good all over the field too. He's not a massive guy. Can get inside, can block guys out with his bigger frame, good speed, good hands. If he stays healthy, he's a top 5 wide receiver in the league, in my opinion. I love where he's going. I'm getting him wherever I can. And I still think Jerry Jeudy, the fact that Tim Patrick is hurt, Jerry Jeudy, this is kind of make or break for him. I feel like as a competitive person, a person playing in the NFL, he's well aware where he was drafted and all the hype coming out. He's got to do something. And what better way? Sutton and Jeudy could be DK and Lockett, in that one magical year when they were both studs. The reality is this is an unbelievable running game. Maybe better, with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon both there. They've got a guy that I have in Dynasty who I think if one of these guys get hurt could play an important role in Mike Boone. That's a deep pull for all the psychos out there. But nice. Yeah, I have him on my Dynasty team, and I'm not saying I'm hoping for an injury. I'm just saying I'm ready to put him in there.
If anything happens to Javonte Williams, it's on you. It's on you.
It's on me. It's on me now. I'll take the blame since I don't have him anywhere because Melvin Gordon is definitely just where you have to take Javonte Williams. The reality is Melvin Gordon's going to play. We have to get over the fact that there's 2 or 3 guys that are going to carry the ball guaranteed 20 times a game. And other than that, it's going to be a committee. Melvin Gordon's going to play. He was unreal last year, and people want to just say, oh no, Javonte Williams and crown him. Javonte Williams is an unbelievable football player, an unbelievable back. And if Melvin Gordon wasn't there, I think this guy's top 5. But Melvin Gordon is there. Melvin Gordon is going to play, and he's going to vulture goal line. He's going to vulture carries. Melvin Gordon is an unbelievable football player still. So yeah, Javonte Williams, I won't have him anywhere. But for me on this team, Sutton, and obviously Russell Wilson too. This is arguably the best offensive team he's ever played for.
Yeah, and we've seen multiple years of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf finishing as wide receiver 1, solid wide receiver 2, so he can support 2 guys. I still think it's going to be a run-heavy team in Denver, but maybe not as much as Seattle. They're going to throw the football a little bit more as well. I will get to that the Gordon and Javonte, my take here. We have a board that we can bring it up in a second, but I just want to go back to Sutton. I'm lockstep with you and Sutton. I think he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver. I have a lot of shares of him as well. I liked him before the Patrick injury. I like him slightly more because Tim Patrick actually led this team in end zone targets last year with 8. He was going to be a factor in this offense, especially inside the red zone. Jerry Jeudy had 0 end zone targets last year. Cortland Sutton had 7, so just 1 behind Tim Patrick. But you saw the board with the deep targets. I think this is a match made in heaven for these 2 guys. deep targets. This is from FTN data. We have 40 plus tools if you're looking for, the fantasy football package, the draft kit, the game plan, Jeff Ratcliffe, #1 ranker, all kinds of stuff included in this package, including 40 plus tools like this, statistics that I just get lost in with days. I'm a psycho like you, and I love this stuff. He's 17 deep targets, at least 20 yards down the field. Cortland Sutton, 17 inside the top 10 in terms of targets. And in terms of percentage of targets, he was also inside the top 10. Percentage of targets, at least 20 yards down the field. We'll get to this board in a second, George. The pass attempts for Russell Wilson. So you saw Cortland Sutton and how he was used, how he likes to run his yards, high A-dot guy inside this offense, average depth of target. Very, he's got some boom or bust, but there's a lot of boom to his game, the way that he runs his routes, especially the left side of the field. And now you add Russell Wilson, 74 pass attempts last season of at least 20 yards down the field, #1 in the NFL. 19% of his pass attempts last season, at least 20 yards, #1 in the NFL. The direction that he likes to throw the football, left side of the field. It is a match made in heaven. And if you saw on that board, Tyler Lockett, the same thing as Tyler Lockett, runs similar routes as Cortland Sutton. His average depth of target, very similar. Targets of at least 20 yards down the field, very similar. And percentage of targets in the NFL last year, 20 yards. Like, again, kind of take Cortland Sutton, you take away Lockett and you give him Cortland Sutton. It's very similar. So I think this is a perfect match for these two. I am very excited. He's going roughly as wide receiver 21, 22. I am tapping every time I see him on the board. I like it. And I like what you said about Jeudy. He hasn't really shown us too much. There's been spurts, but let's not blame him for the piss poor quarterback play. It's been awful, right? Sutton's getting all those deep targets and he's not catching them because the play is not. This is what we said with Lockett. Like, good luck with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, right? It's unfortunate, but Russell Wilson's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen.
I wanted to bring him up too. Tim Patrick being out. KJ Hamler is one of the fastest guys in the NFL.
He's explosive, yeah.
He's gonna catch some deep balls. It's gonna be hit and miss, I think, with him.
Yeah,
I mean, especially
you can do some bubble stuff with him too. Give him the ball and just let him explode.
Yeah, he could play on the opposite side of Sutton and Jerry Jeudy in the slot. Alberto, like, this is going to be a really, really hard team to stop.
It is. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Jeudy. Now that Patrick is hurt, they probably put KJ Hamler in the slot and maybe Juju on the outside, but there's some things that they can do and move it around. But really excited about Cortland Sutton and then the running backs. So, Lee brought up the question, Javonte and Gordon split 60-40. This is a friendly reminder of how things worked out last year. Look at this. Touches, the attempts on the ground, exact same. Melvin Gordon, 4.5 compared to 4.4. More rushing touchdowns for Melvin Gordon. More targets in the red zone for Melvin Gordon. At least, red zone rushing attempts. He finished with more fantasy points per game. It was split. It was a darn split. And then what happened? They brought back Melvin Gordon for another year. Russell Wilson's old buddy, Melvin Gordon. He's back. Clearly, they like him. Veteran back. The organization has said that both of these guys are going to be on a pitch count. I think it's going to run very, very similar. I agree with what Lee is saying, 60-40. I think that's fair. One guy's going as a top 10 running back. The other guy's going as running back 40. The value is with Melvin Gordon. Now, Melvin Gordon came out yesterday and said that this organization wants Javonte to be the guy. Of course, they want Javonte to be the guy. He does have a higher ceiling. He is a home run play. I'm not comfortable taking him in the mid-second. I may have a share or two in some of my leagues. I owned him a lot last year. I won a lot of consolation brackets. He came on towards the end of last season, but I watched every single Broncos snap as a Javonte Williams owner, and I was frustrated as hell with all the play that Melvin Gordon got as a guy who's on the field in third down, goal line work, good pass protector. He's not going anywhere. He just isn't. He's going to be a pain in your ass. I think he could get up to 70-30. If you want to take that home run shot with Javonte, you're going to have to pay the price. But I think where Melvin Gordon is going at around 8, around 9, around round 10, in around that range, I think he's a pretty good value. He does have a nose for the end zone, man. It's been like double-digit touchdowns almost for every single year except for his rookie season. So, Meaney in the house, super overweight on Gordon. in best ball, hoping 60-40 is best case scenario, still value at 70-30. I agree. Still value at 70-30. If anything happens to Gordon, you're viewing Javonte as a top 5 back. If anything happens to Javonte, I think you're viewing Melvin Gordon as like a low-end RB1. So there's still a lot to like. And I'm in on Russell Wilson. There's a lot to like about this Broncos team, right? Defensively, They're great as well. I mean, they can get after the quarterback, strong secondary. Denver's here. It's going to be, and it's always a tough place to play for opposing teams into Denver as well. You give them the advantage at home, Mile High. All right, we like the Broncos. I think they're a sneaky little play to win the division. I think they're a sneaky little play plus 270. I think that's pretty good, decent odds. And then 18-1 still hanging there at the Super Bowl odds. All right, Las Vegas, 40-minute mark. Again, rolling here pretty good. 8-5. Vegas not giving them really any credit, despite this team being much improved. Of course, the division is improved, but last year they rattled off 10 wins. They had 6 walk-off wins, overtime or, game-winning stuff. So that was an NFL record. You can call them lucky if you want, but they went through a lot of adversity last year. Henry Ruggs, there's a lot of off-field stuff with Henry Ruggs, who was starting to get into a bit of a groove with Derek Carr. There's some off-field stuff with John Gruden, who, was gone. See you later. Halfway through the year. So there's certainly some adjustments this team had to make. They're 7-1 to win the division, 300 plus 300 to win the wild card, and long shots to win the Super Bowl. The biggest addition as we transition to some of their weapons is, of course, Davante Adams, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Josh Jacobs, RB23, Zamir White, RB59 is a back that they drafted. So have Kenyon Drake on the squad as well. And Brandon Bolden, of course. Josh McDaniels moves over from New England to Las Vegas, and he brings his old buddy Brandon Bolden with him. Davante Adams, as I mentioned, he's a top dog here, going as wide receiver 4 on average, a top 10 pick. Hunter Renfrow had a fantastic season, finished as a top 15 wide receiver, and was one of the better waiver wire pickups last year as a mismatch in the slot, one of the better route runners in the NFL. And then Darren Waller at tight end 4. I believe his first game was like 16 catches or something silly like that. Then he cooled off and he suffered an injury. And then really that's where we saw Renfrow kind of take off. Let you tee it up. What do you like? What do you don't like on this squad from a fantasy standpoint?
The running back is a mystery. I mean, it's going to be a mystery. Josh Jacobs played a whole bunch in the Hall of Fame game, which everyone's like, oh, that means they're shopping him, and he's, it's obviously he's not going to be the starter. And Zamir White looked unbelievable. Like it's hard to gauge in the first preseason game. Zamir White was out there when the other team's worst players are on the team. Half of the players on the other side aren't going to even make the team. He looked pretty decent. They've got Amir Abdullah, who's a good pass catcher. At one point, Amir Abdullah, let's not forget, he was being drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts a few years ago. So
after that big run in preseason game he had against the Jets, he jumped up boards. Yeah,
he's not invisible. He's athletically, he's unbelievable. So I mean, that's a dart throw. I mean, we all know who Davante Adams is. The question is he that same player with Derek Carr throwing the ball? I think he will be. I think Derek Carr is massively underrated. Derek Carr took this team to the playoffs, and you can say whatever you want.
And
his number one receiver
beat the
was Zay
Bengals.
Jones. Almost beat the Bengals.
End of the game. They had a chance at the end of the game to beat the Bengals, and the Bengals went on to the Super Bowl. Man,
they had nobody. It was Derek Carr and pieced together at running back, pieced together at wide receiver. Hunter Renfrow came on. He's going way too high for my taste now. I mean, he is a slot guy. He was thrust into a ton of catches because Waller was gone. Henry Ruggs was not playing. There was nobody left. I mean, it was like him and Zay Jones, who isn't even on the team anymore. So, Renfro is going way too high for my blood. If Waller's healthy, Renfro will not catch as many passes as he did last year. Davante Adams is going to demand targets because he's one of the best receivers in the league, and I think they're going to throw a ton to the running backs as well. I feel like Renfro is being vastly. Look, I love this guy. The tackle he made last year.
He's a man.
I want him on my real football team. I want 20 of him.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's too rich for my blood. He's just not going to have the production. It's going to regress, and I believe it's going to regress quite a bit. You know what I mean? It's just there's just no way he catches that many passes. He's not fast. He's an unbelievable technician, unbelievable route runner, with crazy hands. Like if the ball is near him, he's going to catch it. That's just who he is as a player. but his ADP is way too high for my blood. I won't have him on any of my teams. I love Waller very easily. Having Renfro there and having Devontae Adams, Darren Waller could be the number one tight end this year. I don't think that is a stretch at all. I mean, he could be the number one. He could have the most catches as a tight end. He could certainly have the most touchdowns as a tight end. This team loves Darren Waller. Darren Waller is a freak, is an absolute mismatch wherever you put him on the field. So the Raiders are going to be massively improved, and I'm thinking about putting a future on them to possibly play for the Super Bowl this year.
Well, if you're looking for a long shot, like this is it, right? Like the Raiders are underrated. Nobody gives them any credit. EY just talks so much about the Raiders, and I have a lot to say. And there's no more time. The only thing, I'm just kidding. I disagree with a couple things before we get out of here. So I've said this before. I showed it to my old buddy Mike Omola, and those at Anthem Sports Entertainment knows we've had some conversations. He likes the Raiders. He's drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much. I'm going to take him with a grain of salt, right? But what he said about Josh McDaniels to me, and I think it kind of applies. If you look at Josh McDaniels when he was, running offenses, elite offenses, of course, Tom Brady is not Derek Carr. Randy Moss is not Devontae Adams, and Wes Welker is not Hunter Renfrow. But that offense, I think in New England could run very similar in with the Raiders, right? Adams can be a little bit like Randy Moss. Hunter Renfrow in the slot like Wes Welker, and a tight end really wasn't utilized inside that offense. I think Darren Waller is fantastic. I think he's amazing. I wouldn't be shocked if he led all, tight ends and touchdowns and he was like tight end one. Like he is an absolute beast. They also have Foster Moreau in that squad, who I think is pretty good. I think the reports are true. They actually wanted to deal Darren Waller because of what I said. I don't think that they're really going to utilize the tight end position as much as what we've seen before with this offense. So Waller's kind of my bust. I like Renfrow. I don't think he's going to get as many targets and as many catches, but I think if you leave with him in a PPR league as your wide receiver 5, I think there's upside for him to be a low-end wide receiver 3. We got to bring up this board before we get out of here, George, the Adams board. We got to do it. Look at these two guys in the 1 year together in Fresno. Are you kidding me? 5,800 yards for Carr, 50 passing touchdowns, almost 2,000 yards for Adams, and 20 receiving touchdowns. There's guys in the NFL that just hope to have, 3 seasons combined with those numbers. This is going to be a hell of a connection. He may not be wide receiver 1 like Kupp and Jefferson. He may not have the similar numbers as he did in Green Bay, but my goodness, it's going to be worthy of all of it. We'll say goodbye to Game Plus because there's a question or two maybe we just get to on the way out of here. So we'll say goodbye to Game Plus. We appreciate you. If you want to come over, you're a Raiders fan, you want to come over for the final couple minutes, hop on over to our FTN Network YouTube page. Otherwise, we thank you so much, and we'll be back on Tuesday. So goodbye to you. Lee, we'll get to that in a second on Drake. I think Derek Carr is one of the most underrated quarterbacks. I just really wanted to address that you had said, because I know some people like to aggressively draft quarterbacks. And if you're new to fantasy football and you look at all the fantasy points, you see all the quarterbacks, they're up at the top. They get the most points. But Derek Carr last year at 4,800 yards was top 5 in the NFL. He didn't really have the passing touchdowns. You mentioned the lack of weapons that he had at times in the season last year, throwing to Zay Jones. Now you add Adams, you have Waller in the field, you have Hunter Renfrow, you got mismatches all over the darn field with these 3 guys. I think Carr is in for a breakout season. He's finished as a top 15 quarterback a couple times already. He had MVP votes this season with Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. Now you're giving him some weapons. You're giving him awesome offensive-minded coach in Josh McDaniels playing in a powerhouse division, which is going to see a lot of totals. Carr's going roughly as quarterback 14, 15. I think he could finish as a top 10 quarterback, a top 12. I think worst case scenario. I think he's a really good target if you wait it out at the position. To wrap up with the running backs, I don't want any of them. Lee, Drake worth the draft, a flyer, or just wait Jacobs' usage and pick up on waivers? I just think what you said, EY, it's going to be a mess. They didn't pick up the option on Jacobs. They're playing him in the Hall of Fame game. It's hard to simulate hits in practice. They want to get him out there. It's a new system. They want to have him have a feel for the offense. But Zamir White, you mentioned Brendan Bolden on a show before. We saw it in New England, right? Brendan Bolden's just on the field randomly. This guy's on the field. He's just going to play, right? McDaniels knows him, comfortable, brings him over. He trusts him, right? He's going to play him in situations. Amir Abdullah is going to be played in situations. Kenyon Drake is going to be played in situations. The Drake contract a couple years ago was just an awful signing by Mayock and Gruden. Like, that regime is now gone. They owe nothing to Kenyon Drake. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy was cut or released or just an afterthought at this point. I think you just bypass everyone in the backfield. You want to take the value on Jacobs and CEH and Sanders, these guys who are dropping outside the top 30 at the running back position. I think you can do that, but I wouldn't leave with them as your RB2. It'd have to be an RB3 for me. But I like this Raiders team as we get out of here. I like your call, right? 40-1 to win the Super Bowl, a little sprinkle, or to win the division at plus 700. Nobody gives them any credit, man. And they got Chandler Jones who can get after the quarterback. They're improved as well. Daily handle. Drake isn't good. Agreed. No, he's not. He had some moments, but he's in a crowded backfield as well. All right. We almost did it. We almost got through it all in 46. But we appreciate you. And if you hopped on over, smash the like button. Any comments, any questions, you can leave them there. We have 2 more divisions to preview next week in the AFC. And we're just like 20 days away from week 1, Bills and Rams. So we'll wrap up everything. If there's something you guys would like to see, leave it in the comment section. Reach out at the Eric Young, at Chris Meaney. We have all kinds of content over at FTN. If you're looking for a package, you can use the promo code FTNTV to save yourself a 20%. A betting package, same sort of deal. We'll be with you on the show, giving picks throughout the entire NFL season. We will say goodbye to you. Hopefully in a couple weeks, we'll do a live draft. That'll be fun. Maybe we can get you guys watching and listening in the draft as well. We'll talk to you guys soon. From Eric Young, myself, Chris Meaney, and George running the show. See you next week. Cheers.